right, this is the committee, no. This is the Committee of Public Utilities. This is Monday, March 27, 2017. We're at 6 p.m. I have Councilor De La Sola. I
Here.
have Councilor Allen. I have Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
We have 3 members present. We do have a quorum.
Salute the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, the piece of business before you. This is a communication to allow Mobilite LLC to make a presentation.
Mr. Chairman, on the motion.
Yes, Councilor McLaughlin.
Yeah, can we invite the petitioner before us for the presentation?
Yes. You
Please.
state your name and your position. Sure. You go wait there.
Good evening. My name is Rosanna Ferranti. I'm with Mobility, and I am the Director of Permitting for the Northeast Region. So thank you for having me here tonight. I really appreciate the time I know we have been before the council probably about 6 months ago now. So what I'd like to do tonight is just have a very informal presentation as to who we are and what we're trying to do, and maybe reset maybe how we initially came into work with the city of Everett.
Sure, okay.
So that's all I'm looking for, is just a couple minutes of conversation and discussion and like background as to what we're trying to do. One thing, I did bring a couple of handouts that we can pass around so you can have a better understanding of a visual as to what we'd like. Sure. Sure, no problem. So Mobility is an infrastructure company, and what we do is we build out infrastructure like Wi-Fi structures for wireless companies to help them facilitate coverage around really nationally. So we've actually been involved in really big projects. We've been involved with Churchill Downs and really big events across the country. But now what I'm here to speak about tonight is our small cell initiative, which is basically, so as everybody knows, there's existing locations of wireless installations, either on buildings or on towers. What a small cell installation does is it provides additional capacity for data to transfer. So here in Everett, we've identified one particular area that needs that extra coverage, that extra ability for the data to pass through from one existing location to another existing location. So typically, you may have seen other people do this by fiber and having it run underground for data, for backhaul, it's what it's referred to as. The way Mobility has partnered up with Sprint, the technology we're using is wireless. And so rather than trenching to have this backhaul fiber coverage assistance to the data, we do it with a wireless antenna. In Everett, we only have one location that we need to talk about. We don't have, in some jurisdictions, we may have 5 or 6, or depending on the needs of that community and the Sprint users there. In the packet I passed around, you'll see that we initially had proposed one particular pole, and so, and I understand that that wasn't received favorably. Now we're proposing a different pole, which is really on the same street. And like I said, in the packet, you'll see a photo of what the pole looks like and what the installation. It's basically a 3-foot antenna that goes on the top of the wooden pole. The other part of the packet is sometimes we attach to street light fixtures So right now, we are speaking to a lot of bigger cities that have a lot of streetlights that they own to try to attach to them as well or replace them. So we're definitely not here to talk about new poles. We know the double pole issue. We know, we have heard it everywhere, so no new poles. We're just looking for an attachment. And so the reason why we're before you is because it's in the right-of-way. And so we need to come to you to ask for permission to access the right-of-way. The utility company, in this particular instance, is National Grid, and they're required to allow us to attach to their structure if it is feasible structurally and it doesn't interfere with anything. So under federal law, they are required to allow us to apply and to co-locate on their structure.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Mr. Chairman, through you to petitioner, good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. There is nothing before us tonight to ask for a vote of anything.
Nope.
You're just here for informational purposes to
Education.
educational
Yep,
wise, right?
that's it.
Fantastic. Couple of questions that I'm going to get out of it first. Why this specific area versus anywhere else in the city of Everett, or why this specific street versus anywhere else in the city of Everett? It honestly sends a red flag to me that this is the only place in Everett that you guys want to set up. That tells me that there's something else going on behind.
Well, so
that
part
doesn't
of it
meet
is
the eye here.
part of it is driven by Sprint users. So, for instance, this particular area in Everett may have a higher number of Sprint users than another part of the city. But the engineers evaluate. I do not choose the poles. Our engineers evaluate how much usage is happening in an area, and once it hits a certain threshold, it says, wait a minute, we need to have some extra coverage and assistance to transfer the data. So this isn't this is not voice, like in the typical installations around that we've seen for years. This is data that's backhauling, basically sending, it's like the pipe to the pipe.
Okay.
For the usage. So it's driven by, there must be a considerable amount of Sprint users in that area.
Okay. No, that's great. There's a high rise about less than 2 city blocks away that we have seen other companies like this come in, rent space on buildings, and be able to service the needs of the residents. That is legitimately a couple of hundred yards away, the high rise that I'm speaking about. Why have you guys not looked at doing something to that effect?
So the utility pole is 30 feet. So the whole idea of small cells is to come down closer to the street rather than being up high. So that would be more of a traditional, whatever, what we've seen often is these, on apartment buildings or office buildings and such. This is to help those existing locations. I could double check. I don't know how many carriers are on there. Sprint may be on there already. But like I said, this is to complement an existing location.
Because I'll be very truthful with you, right? And I'm not gonna.
No, that's fine.
I can support putting this on a building. I can support putting this on a high rise. I'm absolutely never going to vote to put this on a telephone pole or a light pole. I wouldn't want it in front of my house, and I wouldn't want to jam down somebody else's throat in their neighborhood or on their street. I've heard from many residents in that immediate area that are concerned, right? We were told that you're going to have some big signage that says danger, stay away, stay back 300 feet. I mean, there's some stuff going on here that doesn't meet the eye, that doesn't make this sound really feasible for the residents and for the neighborhood. And I don't particularly live in that neighborhood, but I'm concerned about every neighborhood in the city. And I wouldn't want it in my neighborhood, so I don't want it in their neighborhood. If you guys want to come to the city, if there's a purpose and you guys need to service residents better, then we need to figure out a different method, because where we're going on this is not going to work, to be truthful with you. And
No,
I
that's
know
what we're
just
here
talking
for.
to-
That's what
I
this
know
is.
talking to my colleagues, you're never going to get support to be able to put this on a pole. So if we need to do this, we need to figure out plan B. Which
So
is some
how,
sort of a
so,
higher-
so is it, okay, so for instance, if we went back and we said, okay, we can't be in a residential neighborhood with this, but we went and found a utility pole that's 30 feet that would serve this purpose in a commercial
Come
area.
back and talk to me. Absolutely. But
Okay,
that,
so it's the
that
so,
whole area is very densely populated with residents.
okay.
Really, they like a very dense area versus a lot of other places in the city of Everett. That immediate neighborhood is close knit.
So no, that's fine. So typically what we like to talk about with the jurisdiction is we like to talk about height, we like to talk about location, and we like to talk about type, right? So here, it sounds like location is where the issue is. It's in a residential area. The height, a utility pole at 30 feet, we find is pretty.
Yeah, I mean,
that's-
30 feet
People
and
are already
additional,
used to seeing,
additional 3 feet off of a 30-foot pole isn't the end of the world, to be truthful with you. It's not going to be this
Yeah.
double the telephone pole size, monstrosity thing that's going to be an eyesore. For me, it's location.
okay,
It's
no,
location,
that's, and I will
location,
take that
location.
back.
And I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but many of them that answer in this committee tonight, I have spoken to, including the area council, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight due to a previous commitment, is very concerned about location, and we don't want to see it. We don't want to
That's
see it on that street. We don't want to see it on that pole or in that neighborhood, to be very truthful. So that's why I asked. My first question was, why in this area? Why can't we not pick somewhere else in the city of Everett that maybe is more commercial, more feasible?
It's
for
driven
something
by
to-
users and
I
usage.
understand, absolutely.
So I'd have to go back and see if there's maybe an area, a business, commercial area that's close, that's pretty close to here.
Sure.
That maybe might be able to work. Maybe there's a little bit taller pole, maybe there's a 45-foot, I don't know, I'd have to.
So is a building, I'm not going to take the floor because I know my colleagues have questions. Is a building not possible?
No, so we're trying to be closer to the ground, and so we are trying to be in the right-of-way, the public right-of-way. That's the goal. So a building, unless there's a municipal type of structure that is low, and, I mean, we would consider that.
Which there kind of is. I mean, the Shoe Library is on the other side of Broadway, which is pretty low of a building, and it's municipal.
So if that's something that, you'd be interested in, we
You know, I'm
could
just
totally
throwing
take
that
a
out
look
there
at
as
those.
as a first
Yeah.
idea, or something might sound crazy, but just thinking, you said that was the scenario. I'm looking for an option to help you guys
Sure.
out, to be
No,
truthful.
appreciate that.
But this is never gonna fly, and I'm
Okay.
being honest with you. So I'll yield the floor to my colleagues, and then we'll go back and figure out Plan B, hopefully.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Counselor Hanlon? Counselor, just turn your mic on.
I was not available at the original time that you came in to present this to us. So, and just on what you were saying now, you said that this system is to provide extra coverage, additional coverage.
Right,
So
so
you're-
more reliable coverage,
Oh,
so.
no,
yeah.
okay. But you're telling me now that you do have coverage in the city somewhere?
So what happens is, there's only so much data, this is now, I'm not an engineer, but
Okay.
there's only so much data that can pass through the system,
Okay.
okay? And there's only so many users.
You're saying
And what,
the current system?
the current system,
Okay.
correct. And so what happens is, when there's that much more data and the system can't handle it,
Okay.
then you need to supplement this, otherwise the users have degraded service. So they unreliable, blockage, so then they're unhappy. And so with all the internet connectivity that everybody wants with everything and all these apps, it's just eating everything up. And then what happens is, we're at 4G, we're headed towards 5G, which is a whole other level of technology that's coming in the next 2 to 3 years. And so this is trying to help prepare for that.
Okay, still, I got to go back. Where is the existing coverage? Is it just passing through the air somewhere?
Yeah, so there's existing locations right now.
In Everett?
Correct, yes.
There are locations like this?
Not small cell, but like the typical, like he had mentioned, on a building and such.
Yeah, we have.
Those do voice and data. This particular installation is not voice.
Okay.
It's literally to help offload and transfer that data that people are using on their phones and tablets and, everything else.
And the other thing, it will be the location that you've picked over here, sort of what I would think, and I'm not that good on this thing, but what I would think isn't like the best location in the world, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you rather be on top of the tallest hill in Everett?
It's so technology, it's changed. So initially, I mean, way back, it was, the 200-foot tower, right? And then it started coming down into the 75s and the 65s. Now we're down to the 30s. I mean, we have installations that are to 29 feet. And that's because it's getting closer, the radius. It's really trying to make sure that coverage in that area is seamless, because there's so much traffic going on with it. So it's like it's really trying to complement all these existing locations. It doesn't replace it, because a small cell only does a half a mile radius. It's not much at all.
Okay. And so then, based on what you're saying about this, all this new stuff coming along, is your equipment, can it be used by everybody? I'm thinking
No.
about another person coming, another company like
Right.
yours, coming in
And-
and asking for another pole.
That's right. And I don't know, you already may have Verizon or maybe Verizon. They're pretty active in terms of attaching small cells to utility poles in the city already. I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
So
and so you'll only be asking for one location in the
that's
city?
right, yes.
And
And
that's it? I mean, you won't be
that's what
coming
I
back
said.
in a
I went
year?
back and said, I need to know every single location in Everett, because that's what I like to do. I'm also I'm part of town government where I live, so I want to see the whole plan. I want to see the picture. And so they said this one pole. So that's what, and so now I have heard concerns about where it's located, so I'm going to go back and have that discussion.
Okay, and so then my last question is, why that exact location?
The engineers,
Yeah,
they tell
engineers?
me, yeah, I don't choose the pole.
Okay.
They tell me they look at an area and say, look at all this traffic going on with the phones and the data. We need help here. Our sites need help. Otherwise, the service, becomes poor service for the customers.
Well, I see on Revere Beach Parkway, they put in a new Verizon, not Verizon, Edison, the electric company, put in a lot of new poles. And one of them is extremely tall, like 20 feet taller than the others. And I don't understand why they do that. It's right on the corner of Revere Beach Parkway and Second Street.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at it, you say, why do they need such a tall pole? Now, I haven't looked to see if there's any equipment on it now, there wasn't before. And maybe that's kind of like the same thing, and I don't know how many companies have this kind of equipment in here. I know that, some of the neighbors in the area are a little bit concerned about it, and, so we have to be concerned about it too.
And it varies. Some jurisdictions deal with it, everybody deals with it differently. Some jurisdictions don't have an issue with the residential piece because there's so much density, right? There's so many people, and so many people, they don't want bad service, so they hear that side of it too. Others are very, no, not in residential. So it really, we're just here to work with every community, so.
And I've seen the pole, picture of the pole anyway, and it looks like it's been there for a little while, probably a very sturdy pole, but it looks like it's been there for a while, so I'm saying 5 or 10 years from now, you're talking about, you said I don't want to get into the double pole business, well, you don't get into the double pole business, that's up to the electric company or the telephone company, whoever owns the pole, and they decide to move a pole, and then they're going to come and they're going to say to you, probably not you might not even be around, but to your engineers, move your equipment. And the problem we're getting now is that nobody wants to move their equipment, they just leave it there. We have poles that have been up for 10 years or more in the city, and they just don't want to move their equipment. So would we be able to move your equipment if you place it anywhere in the city of Everett?
We could certainly talk about a condition or some type of, that certainly we could talk about that. We're not here we're here to work with the city, so we certainly would not be obstinate and say, we are not moving. We're gonna make it, we're here to work with the cities. In some jurisdictions, we build our own poles. We prefer to build our own poles because then we can control that.
Right, yeah.
And we can take it down and put it up and not have to worry about it and not have to deal with the utility companies on that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Chairman, thank you.
Council McLaughlin?
And, I think that it's very good that you want to be a good neighbor and you want to work with the community. I think the first presentation that was presented was like this out-of-space type thing coming into this neighborhood with these signs and all this awareness that this was going to be like detrimental to a neighborhood. I think that it was maybe presentation-wise was not the greatest, to be truthful with you, right? So I think that if we kind of work together, I think that we can make this happen. Maybe not on this pole particularly or on this particular street, but I think that you can never say never, that it's never going to happen. It's probably going to happen at some point. Just a matter of where and making the right arrangements for the residents. And I think some of the awareness or the scare comes from the first presentation that was made that was
Understandable.
not honestly the greatest, because if it was my street, I would be like, wow, this is kind of crazy, right? So that's why I think if you could go back and just talk to them about the fact that we're not necessarily against the concept or the fact that we need to have this in the city to better residents for service, but we're concerned about the location of the existing pole. it was kind of almost comical, to be honest, right? We shoot it down, and they come right back immediately to us again. And you know, you are here tonight in a different manner, to be truthful with you. You are here you're hearing a lot different of a approach, where you're much more community oriented. You want to work with the neighborhood and want to work with the city. So I'm definitely a lot more relaxed about it than previously. But this location is just not, is in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinion, the right location.
Okay.
So I would like to really see if you could come back with maybe a couple of other proposals, or not proposals, but because the proposal's the same, right? If it's going to do the same thing, it's going to do the same.
Right, it's going to look the same.
Exactly. So not proposals, but just just
Okay.
locations.
Then we'll go back and figure that out.
Whether maybe it's a smaller building, like I said, or it's something, because if you have to keep it close to the radius of the ground for better service purposes, that's, you know, you can only do what you can do also, right? And you're, to a point, your hands are tied. But I would like to see maybe we can work together to come up with a couple of locations that could be feasible and could support support our colleagues on this.
No, that's great, and we may have, I'm just thinking in my head, so I will go back and speak to our engineers and let them know exactly what where we need to focus and not focus. They may come back and say they need 2 locations because of, they're trying to hit that area. So if there isn't anything directly in that center, it's kind of a search area. They have to go outside. They may have to do 2. But I think if I can, again, keep them away from the residents,
I'll be honest, if you had to have 5 and they were away from a residential
you're
neighborhood,
probably
I would
open to it.
I would
Yeah.
be much more open to having
Okay.
a multitude if it meant that we weren't going to have it on a residential neighborhood or basically on top of a residential house. I mean, the pole that is in this picture is literally just a few feet away from somebody's driveway, away from somebody's home, right? So if the radius had to be expanded, so you had to add more because the radius was expanded, I definitely would be supportive of that, and I could
Okay.
definitely work with you on that. So I definitely didn't want to come off harsh, but the true concept is that this location is not really feasible.
No, I appreciate you being candid. Otherwise, we never get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? We could sit here for 3 days. and talk
No,
about it.
let's get to the point and figure out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
no,
location.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to yield the floor to my colleagues, but if we can have your business card also, maybe we can
Mm-hmm.
communicate and try to help you as well. Maybe point out some different ideas or some different
Oh, that would be
locations.
fabulous. Yeah,
being
no, definitely.
individuals that know the city probably much better, to be truthful, right? We might be able to brainstorm a little bit better, but that's where I think we should direct this kind of conversation going forward.
Well, that's why I'd hoped that we could come before committee first because I thought there needed to be more discussion and more kind of thinking around it before we go to city council for a vote when there's been no discussion or anything. So
What is the deal with the sign, though? Is it a
No,
danger?
the sign- okay,
Is,
so
I
no,
mean,
the
is there
sign-
like a voltage that comes off this? That's
the sign is at the top of the pole. It's for anybody who's for anyone who's working the pole, like even for if anyone who's touching the pole, there needs to be a sign, a warning sign. That's an OSHA standard. That's not us. That's
Yeah,
OSHA
no,
saying.
and I know.
And it's not really big. I know those initial plans had it like half, I don't know, it was huge. It's not that big.
Okay, so touching of the pole on the bases is safe.
Yes, it's fine. It's
It's
fine.
just a matter of, and we just unfortunately seen it recently with some window washers that hit a wire right and it's the top of the pole is
Right.
where the danger part becomes. So if you come in contact with this section of the pole, is going to be an issue.
Right, just like if you had a dish, from the Dish Network, you don't want to stand in front of the dish. I mean,
Right.
it's just like anything else on a rooftop as well.
right.
But it's at the top. It's not at the bottom.
Yeah, no, okay. And that makes me feel better because I remember, some of my colleagues will remember the thing that happened down at Air Force Road a couple of years ago. The guys will hit the bucket off the pole and they got stuck in the air for a while, if you guys remember that. So it was, the top part was the danger part, not the bottom part of the pole. So the bottom part of the pole was safe and was able to be, reasonably accessible, but the top was where it became a problem. And that happened a few years ago down in my district, and I remember that. So that makes me feel better also knowing that it's not as volatile as we originally thought it was. going
And
to be.
a lot of companies are having these all over the country too. This is not just us. This is not unique to us.
Okay.
It's very common in the city of Boston. It has them.
Any
They're
of the
everywhere.
surrounding communities from Everett, do you know? I know you just said Boston, but do you know if
We
any
were
of our,
we were just approved in Cambridge for 3.
so Cambridge just approved you for 3?
Uh-huh.
That's great. I have a lot of friends on the Cambridge City Council.
Yep. And then we went through. But see, now Cambridge is set up through the Pole and Conduit Commission.
Okay.
So that's the that's the commission that evaluates and everything. And it's a public hearing, just like here, so.
Okay, so no other surrounding community other than Cambridge that you know of, Malden and Medford?
We're working with
or-
Chelsea right now, too.
Are you working with Chelsea as well?
Mhm.
Perfect. That's helpful because a lot of times we can kind of coordinate with amongst each other and kind of talk about what they're thinking versus what we're thinking and kind of just, so that's really good. I appreciate your presentation, and I think it's been a lot more relaxed and a lot more settling than previous presentations from your company. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Counselor
Mayor,
McKinnon,
Counselor?
do you have any questions?
I just have a couple. Just continue what
Oh,
Councilman
I thought that
McLaughlin
was
said.
your name, because it's a,
What's he say? No, I'm
oh, okay.
The biggest issue with all of us is, it's not even the look of it, or the size of the antenna. It's, like Councilman McLaughlin said earlier, the warning signs that we're gonna be in the bottom of the pole. If you go to any pole, if you go down where Councilman McLaughlin was talking about the incident down the Air Force Road, there's signs on those poles. Those are the high voltage lines going through behind the buildings, and I'd rather have this near my house than that. But besides that, but the signs we were told were on the bottom, people think if you're gonna walk by that,
Of course,
If
yeah,
you're
that
there
would be a
for
little
5 minutes,
startling.
you can't have kids.
Sure.
All right, so
No, no, sure.
I think the issue here was like the presentation, information threw us off guard and got everybody nervous, even people in the audience. So, like you said, the sign is only for when someone's climbing the pole.
Right.
There's no danger of anybody. Do you know any information about this, let's call it, frequency that comes off this unit?
Yeah, so we're regulated by the FCC. I mean, this is all, I could totally provide that information, but it's not that high voltage at all. It's very low powered because it only goes a half a mile. I mean, it's a very small installation. But I can certainly provide that when we come forward with more locations. Any other additional information you would like me to bring, I can bring it for you as well.
Okay, because I'm looking at the poles here, and I'm looking at, I see signs here, but I don't think that's a sign for the antenna on one of the pictures here and there.
Yeah, no, probably not, no.
Right, so I'm looking at it, I'm saying, where's the sign on the picture to the right? There's no sign saying
It's, right, it's-
danger, but y'all letting us know it's up top.
It's at the
Only if
top.
a worker goes up there and sits
Right.
there for an hour.
right.
Okay, do you have anything else you wanted to add? I mean, I think all the questions were asked here.
I just
Like you
wanted
said.
to, I didn't know what the city light situation, if it's municipally owned or not, the city light poles, because we can attach the city light poles as well. So if the city was interested in that case, if they were municipally owned, then we could enter an agreement with you and pay you a small fee to be on those poles, or, evaluate to see if they would work for us. So just wanted to bring another option. This option is going, paying the fee to the utility company, but we certainly do street light poles too.
No, our poles are owned by National Grid.
All of them?
All of our
Okay.
all of our poles are owned by National Grid.
Do you pay fees now to other cities
Yes,
that are being used?
yes.
Do you know what, can you allow to let, how much the fee is?
Well, it's a small, it's
It's
similar
probably-
to a utility fee, so
Yes.
it's not a large
I'm not
fee.
looking, if it was $1,000 a month, I'd let you put the antenna on the
Yeah.
pole.
No,
I'd
it's
just
not
like to know what-
$1,000 a month.
What it is, in case someone does ask us, which next time if you do come up, you could give us that information.
Absolutely. We're in final stages of negotiating with the city of Boston, so we can certainly share that, and then with Mass Dot as well. So we definitely have a lot of agreements that we're working on throughout the Commonwealth and that are close to being finalized.
Okay. Any more questions from the floor? Councilor Hanlon?
Thank you. Most companies that come in here, they're doing something for someone else. They're selling their service. So you are putting this up for who? Is it your
For
company?
Sprint. So, and Mobility is not a service provider.
No.
They are they're not a services provider, meaning we don't have spectrum, we don't offer cell service. We're a service provider to the wireless companies, if they would like, or to, if somebody would like us to build a structure for them to place equipment on it.
So they're going to be looking for your service?
We're already
These
in an
other
agreement
companies?
with them. This particular location is for Sprint.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Hanlon. Councilor McLaughlin, you have any more questions?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I was just getting some information from our assistant city clerk. At this moment, I don't. I think that if we can work collaboratively to try to find a location, a different location. How quickly, to be truthful, would you be coming before us with a proposal to move forward, do you think?
Well, so here would be my plan. I would not want to file, well, a couple of questions. Would I come back here first before going to
I
council?
don't believe so, because, and I was just talking to our assistant city clerk, what we would ask is that you issue all,
Council McLaughlin?
can we ask that the assistant city clerk come before us briefly, if you wouldn't mind?
Thank you.
Thank you. Sergio Canelio, Assistant City Clerk. So I've been working with Rosanna now for a little while. We came up with coming before the committee before she put a proposal together, just to give you information. That's why there's not a specific, a specific plan or anything. It was just coming before you to say, this is what her plan is, this is what she's done in other cities. Because I really wanted you to get a real scope of what the work is going to be, what you're going to do. I think that she should present us, she can send it through my office, we've worked well together so far, a packet of everything that you're looking for, all the FCC regulations, once the contract's settled in Boston, how much they get for polls, et cetera, et cetera. I will build a packet from there and pass it out to the city council. For her to come back to the board, more for information if you wanted her before us. But if she's going to come before us with a plan, so say it's whatever street, we'll use my street, Luke Road. She wants to come to Luke Road to put up a pole. She has to get an abutters list, we have to do a mailing, we have to put it into the newspaper, has to be within 10 days prior to the hearing date. So it comes to a cost for her and her company, it comes before you. You have a public hearing, all the abutters know if they want to come up and discuss it, as we've done in the past. That's how the process works. From there, we have to have that public hearing. You can always send it to committee from there. Once we've had the public hearing, the law has been settled. We've done what we had to do legally. You can bring it to committee if you want to discuss it further, and then kick it back out and vote on it if you'd like. But that's up to her if she's going to present it, if she feels well enough that it's a plan that we're going to go forward with. She can personally get in touch with some of you, send some of the emails, especially with the committee, because it's not a committee of the whole where she'd be in conflict of discussing some of the details. She can discuss it with the committee to see if you feel it's right for her to continue, and maybe that would be a help for her, and maybe she'd feel more comfortable with presenting it before I did all that work and all that expense on her behalf. I don't know if that makes sense.
I'll
No,
ask
that
you this
sounds
question. Sorry, Mr.
Yeah, Counselor.
Before that next step, can you have an individual meetings with each counselor that serves on this committee, Mr. Assistant City Clerk?
Sure.
Is that legal? Because we're not breaking open meeting law, we're not breaking any
No,
violations, right?
You're not making a decision, and you're not a whole body. I think I'm correct, right? Yep. Yep, you're meeting individually.
So we could meet individually with Rosanna in your office or something, Sergio?
Yeah, I would be more than happy to come in and brainstorm and.
And
like I said-
then kind of go from there.
Yeah, it would be, it'd be informational. We wouldn't have to
Sure.
post it or anything. I just like to double check.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
absolutely.
I would rather not go and call and request a vote without us all being at least somewhat in alignment on
Sure.
where we're going.
Once she
It
speaks to-
just doesn't seem to be a good use of the city's time or our time,
right.
so.
Once she speaks to her engineer and sees if there's a new location, I mean, that's where I'm expecting a whole packet of information to come before you. I'm going to present it to the entire city council, but obviously you'll get it first as the board that.
So I think
Sure,
that's most privy way of going with this is that Rosanna goes back to her engineers and talks to them about Plan B of locations and some possibilities, and we can also work individually with her to kind of brainstorm on some potential ideas, and then set up some individual meetings with counselors to kind of lay out the plan, and then go forward where our assistant city clerk will build the packages of information in depth, present it to the city council, and then it takes a vote. I think that's most prudent way of going forward with this, but I think the first step is location, if I haven't mentioned that tonight.
I have the ball. I got it. I'm gonna run with it too to my engineers.
She's
I
been very
think
good,
what
I
happened
gotta
here
tell you
was,
so.
the other informational thing is, has everybody thinking twice about everything with, you might think it's just a simple antenna and you put it up and that's it. If you came forward a few months ago like this, I think it would, it'd be a lot easier us to think about it and talk about it. But the way it came to us the first time, it was like you were going by radiation every time you walked down the street. That was the fear. We thought the sign was 5 feet off the ground, that you'd walk by and see this radiation sign, like, and all this stuff, so.
No, it was a
I think it's
bad
great
first
that you
impression.
came up here tonight and gave us the information, and we can go further like we we're just talking about, and send us the information, we could get together on this, and if it's safe, and, we could talk to the residents, they can come up and speak about it, they might have a different thought on how this is even run. But this is great, and I appreciate you coming by. And any more questions from the floor? City Clerk, that's,
I have nothing to add. No, I think yeah, can you refer that? I'm sorry. Can you?
I'm sorry, so if we don't really have a piece before us, what do we do with?
You're going to excuse us and accept, accept
Place
the
on
committee
file.
report, place on file?
Okay.
Because we're not taking action tonight. There was no action to be
Right.
taken. It was just an informational session.
Okay, so then I'm going to make a motion.
Except for
Oh,
the
I'm
fact,
sorry.
except for the fact that we're requesting information from her, right? Okay.
But
yes.
that's going to go directly through me. It doesn't have to come back to the committee itself. It's going to come through your city clerk and assistant city clerk, and I'm going to present the information to you as individuals, as
Nice-
individual
what a nice guy
councils.
you are, thank you.
Well, why come back to another meeting is
Okay.
if that's okay with the board. I thought it was most prudent to do that instead of having another hearing.
I have one quick question from the chair. Have you ever gone through this before with other cities to get to this point?
So every jurisdiction does it a little differently. Sometimes there's, so I go in front of city council, they immediately say, no, kick it to committee, I go to committee, then the committee writes a recommendation. It goes back to city council with that recommendation, and then it gets voted on. Sometimes it's DPW only, and then they have an evaluation on it. So it does vary. And like I said, in Cambridge, it's the Pole and Conduit Commission. So we don't go in front of the city council at all.
Correct.
It's the commission's empowered to evaluate, and they're very thorough and detailed on that piece of it, so varies.
All right, thank you.
Make a motion to excuse with customary thanks. Thank you for your appearance
Thank you.
tonight.
Thank you.
Second.
No, thank you for the second chance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we accept the committee report and place on file. And motion for adjournment?
No, motion to also refer to the city clerk. Did you make that?
Thank you. Make a motion that we accept the committee report, place on file, and refer to our assistant city clerk for further work,
Information.
for further information, and move for favorable action.
All in
Second
favor?
motion. Second motion. Okay.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
We got anything else in here? This is it?
Yeah, move for,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
all in favor. Thank you.